Today. All right. Welcome back, Algebra 1, folks. We are here today with Mr. Knight. Mr. Knight, how are you doing?
Oh, it's a good day today.
It is a good day today. Almost the start of school. We're very excited. All right. So we are jumping into chapter 4 today, starting off our chapter on systems of equations. And a really important thing to start off with is just how do we take a situation, which is what math is designed for helping us out with, and turning that into an equation where we can then use our math to solve the problem. Ready? So in these two problems right here, we're combining problems 4.1 and 4.2. So the first part of 4.1 is to take each equation here on the left column of this table and match it up with its situation that it's appropriate with in the right column. And alongside that, you'll notice that in each equation, there's a variable there, z. We want to figure out what z actually represents in each of those situations. So 4 situations, 4 equations, and we got to match them up. So Mr. Knight, we have this first situation here where our zoo has 2 fewer elephants than zebras and 5 times more elephants than monkeys. Or sorry, 5 times more monkeys than elephants. And we also know that the total number of elephants, monkeys, and zebras is 30 animals. So which equation do you think lines up with that situation?
So based on some of that information, I know that there's 3 different kind of groups of animals that we're looking at,
All right.
and we're looking at the total of those 3 groups. So I know that I'm going to be looking for something that has around 3 terms, or just it has a lot going on. So I can rule out A and D.
Oh, okay.
And then looking at the relationship here, I know that there are 2 fewer elephants than zebras and 5 times more monkeys than elephants.
Mm-hmm.
So that 2 fewer lets me know that, if I add 2 to this amount, my starting amount, in this case, it's going to be what my situation is representing my Z here.
Gotcha.
Z is going to represent my elephants. If I add 2 more to that, I know I have my zebras. And if I, there's a lot to digest here. And 5 times more monkeys than elephants. So I also know that if I know my number of elephants, which I'm calling Z in this case, that there are 5 times as many of those. So 2 fewer elephants. So based on that part B in here, if I take my number of elephants, zebras, if I take my number of 2 fewer elephants than zebras. This is why we practice. This is why we practice, because it takes a minute to digest.
Here. Should take a pause. I messed this up. There's an X here. I realized it should be a Z. That's my bad.
Oh, that's all good. That's not to worry about here. Yeah, so getting back to what we were, fix that up.
We'll fix it up in post.
Beautiful. Yeah. So getting back to it, we're looking for something with 3 terms. We know that we've got some less than, we've got factors of 5 here, and we want to add up those total numbers. So based on all that information, we know part C here is going to represent situation 1.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I think we can see, like you were saying, Mr. Knight, just to help clarify here, that this 2 fewer elephants than zebras, that kind of fits into this Z minus 2 piece right there, that Z minus 2 term. I think that's what you're getting at?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so the Z minus 2 is the number, I'm going to abbreviate here, number of elephants. And then if that's the number of elephants, then that Z minus 2 times 5 tells us the number of monkeys.
Yeah, so taking that term that we had before, multiplying that by 5, we get our monkeys.
Yeah.
And our last part, we just got to add the number of zebras, which is that remaining Z piece.
Yeah. And so if we are giving someone this equation where we just say, hey, here's Z plus Z minus 2 plus 5 times Z minus 2 equals 30, then the person that is hearing this information, they got to know what Z is, right? And so a way that we could um, make it really clear is using this thing called a let statement. And so in this case, I think our let statement, or revealing what the variable actually represents, we would just say that let z be, let's see, in this case, the number of zebras. Alrighty. So taking a look at this one for Zola, number 2. Zola earned $30 by working 2 hours and then received a $12 bonus. So like you said before, I like how you split that first one up into 3 terms because there's 3 different animals. In this case, I think we can split it up into how she's earning her money. And so she earns $30 2 ways, right? By working her 2 hours and then getting however much she gets paid. And then that $12 bonus just on top of that. Like, she did such a good job, she just got that extra $12. And so that $12 bonus makes me think, oops, sorry about that, that I'm looking to add on just a flat 12. If I look at B and D, those have a 12 in there, but there's 12 times Z in both of those. So I think I'm really just left with A here. So that, I think, is going to fit this situation here. And what do you think in this case Z is going to represent?
Yeah, since our unknown that we're talking about here is we're getting to a total amount of money, we don't know how much money Zola makes per hour. So in this case, Z would represent that wage or dollars per hour, or earnings.
Yeah, I like that. We know how much she makes total, and we know how much her bonus is, and we know how much time she worked, but we have no idea how much she actually earns per hour. So I'll say that in, just to be clear, we are measuring it in dollars per hour. And it's always, I think it's always important to be more clear rather than less in terms of the units or however you're counting or weighing or measuring that variable.
Oh yeah. We always have a tendency to shorthand because in our mind it makes sense, but as audience members, it's not always all there for the complete picture.
Right on.
All right. Part 3 here. 30 ounces of metal is created by mixing zinc with silver. The number of ounces of silver needed is 12 times the number of ounces of zinc. So that's telling me that there's 2 amounts that we need here, and we are combining those together to make our 30 ounces of metal. I guess in this case, I wonder what metal that makes. But in our case here, we know that if we take our zinc amount and we multiply by 12, adding it to the original, we know we're going to get there. So based on that, if we look over there at part D here, if I take the amount of zinc, that Z, and I add it to the amount of zinc times 12, because remember, I need 12 times as much ounces of zinc for the silver. So that first term would represent the zinc. That second term would represent that amount of silver that I need in order to create that metal. So part D here.
Yeah.
And then for our let statement, because we can tell really well, thanks for your annotation here, is that Z in this case is going to let Z equal the number of ounces of zinc, or let Z equal zinc in terms of ounces.
Nice. Yeah, I like that. Since we know that the zinc itself is included in that weight, plus how much silver is, which is 12 times that, that'll get us to our total 30. Nice. All right, in this last one here, Eddie earns $5 an hour and worked 2 hours more than Zach, or longer than Zach. And we know that Zach earns $12 an hour, and together they earn $30. So besides the fact that this is a multiple choice question, and we already know that the only leftover answer is B, I think we should still take a look at how these different pieces fit into there, because I think this one's interesting because there's a good amount going on, actually similar to the monkeys in that first one, part C. That if we think about what we know and don't know, we know how much each of them earned, and we know their wages, and we know how much they earned total, but we don't know how much time they worked. And so if this 12 right here, that's got to be Eddie's $12 an hour. And then over here, that 5, it's got to be, oh, I'm sorry. That is Zach, who earns $12 an hour. And this is Eddie right there. And so if Zach earns $12 an hour, then we need to figure out how much time he worked. And that would be where the Z is right there. And that represents how much time Zach worked. Does that make sense?
You saved the best for last year in terms of how breaking it down, like really looking at when you have the term and you're multiplying these two things together, what does each number represent? And, we emphasize that a lot when we were talking about y equals mx plus b. And when we're talking about translating an equation like that into a situation, and what does your m represent? What is your b? What is your x in this case? And so, it's just bringing that back to us here where we have to define each of those terms and what each of those parameters do to our part here. So I hadn't made that connection before. So
yeah, that's what. Yeah, I like to think of it. And if we're adding, this is what's like you can't add apples and oranges, right? And so if we know total they make $30, this is total $30 really. Well, Zach's hours on its own doesn't make sense. So we have to figure out how do we figure out how much money Zach earns? Well, it's how much he gets paid per hour times the number of hours, and likewise for Eddie. And so, there's going to be situation B here, or equation B. And in this case, Z, B or equals, I'll abbreviate this one, equals the number of hours that Zach worked.
And once again, just being as specific as you can. You don't want to say number of hours because, we are talking specifically about Zach here. So making sure you're including that whole unit that we're measuring.
Yeah, totally. All right. So again, just to wrap things up, this is definitely a type of problem that we maybe seem simple on the outside, but definitely one that we want to really pay attention to, because this is, again, kind of what math is designed for, right? Hey, I want to figure out, I have some situation with some problem that I want to solve. Math is a tool that we can use to then solve that problem and then find a solution to our friend or whoever's asking us this problem. So Mr. Knight, thanks for joining me today, and we will catch y'all in the next video.
Take it easy.